This is week 194 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I'm Anna Belokur, reporting to you from Kyiv, and I'll be taking you through the top stories from Ukraine this week. A huge corruption scandal has swept Ukraine this week, implicating high-ranking officials and highlighting President Volodymyr Zelensky's failure to fulfill his 2019 campaign promise to rid the government of corruption and nepotism. First, the case. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, known as NABU, revealed on Monday that over 15 months, they'd been investigating a network that was allegedly making illegal profit through kickbacks at the state nuclear company Energoatom. This group had siphoned off a reported $100,000 in illicit funds. One of the 8 suspects is alleged ringleader Timur Mindich, a business partner of Zelensky and co-owner of the entertainment company that made Zelensky a household name. Mindich was reportedly tipped off and fled the country legally before it was officially announced that he was a suspect, and he remains at large. Others implicated in the case include former Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Chernyshov, Justice Minister Herman Halushenko, who until July was Energy Minister, and Energy Minister Svetlana Hrinchuk. But before we go into all of the implications of this case, the question is, how did this happen in the first place? The energy sector has long been a high-risk domain for fraud and influence, particularly in a country that's simultaneously fighting a war, managing reconstruction, and seeking closer integration with Europe. Mindich, a businessman with interests in various industries, had been a business partner of Zelensky and oligarch Ihor Kolomoisky going back years, and continued to be a member of the president's inner circle after the 2019 election. An investigation into Mindich's activities by NABU was one of the factors that led to an attempt by the authorities to eliminate NABU's independence in July, law enforcement sources told the Kyiv Independent. Investigators say the alleged scheme led by Mindich forced contractors doing business with Energoatom to pay an illegal extra fee of 10 to 15% to retain their supplier status. The prosecution also describes a back-office operation that laundered the funds. On Wednesday, Zelensky announced that he was sanctioning Mindich and an associate for their involvement in the scheme, although the two had been out of Ukraine for days at that point. He also called on the 2 ministers implicated in the case, both his close allies, to resign. It should also be noted that Zelensky himself appears on a recorded phone call associated with the scheme, but his team denies any involvement and prosecutors have leveled no charges against the president. Mindich is not the only person in Zelensky's reported inner circle to have charges of corruption levied against them. Former Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Chernyshov, already a suspect in a separate corruption case earlier this year, was named by NABU in connection with this scheme as well. 5 people have been detained and an additional 2 remain at large. But even if they're all brought to trial, it'll take more than punishment of these individuals for Zelensky to truly demonstrate reform within his government. At the 5-year mark of his presidency, around 50% of Ukrainians said that they believed Zelensky had fulfilled few or none of his presidential campaign promises, in a survey performed by the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology. And among those who indicated that they saw him as having failed, 50% of those cited his placement of dishonest, corrupt people in his team, while 32% specified a lack of competent staff. The timing of this couldn't be worse for Zelensky. After a summer of unprecedentedly large demonstrations in support of independent anti-corruption agencies by the Ukrainian public, and admonishments from Brussels that Ukraine must reform its democracy before it can be admitted to the European Union, he's facing strong scrutiny from all directions. Likewise, Ukraine's energy infrastructure is under extreme pressure as Russian aerial and missile strikes target power grids and supply lines ahead of winter, where a scandal of this scope amplifies public frustration and political risk, and demands proof of meaningful change. Change which, at this point, Zelensky seems unlikely to embody, despite his campaign promise 6 years ago to shed Ukraine's legacy of institutional corruption. Ukraine has seen challenges on multiple axes of the front line this week, as Russia looks to end the year on the most dominant footing possible. So I'll start with an update on Pokrovsk, which is still the most pressing issue. The city remains under heavy fire, but still standing, with Ukraine's commander-in-chief calling it Russia's main offensive target, and stating that it sees the highest number of daily assaults and the largest concentration of enemy forces. In recent weeks, Ukraine has acknowledged being outnumbered at a ratio of roughly 8-1 in Pokrovsk. So as I've said in the last 2 episodes, it's really only a matter of time when it comes to Russia fully capturing the city. But still, Ukrainian forces continue to assert that the city is not encircled or cut off, and that Ukrainian logistics remain active, although the situation is reportedly difficult and dynamic. For Russia, capturing the city would be a major operational and symbolic win, and the outcome of the battle may influence how the war evolves through the winter months. This week also saw rising activity to the south in Zaporizhzhia Oblast. 5 days ago, Ukrainian forces withdrew from a handful of settlements in the northeastern part of the oblast, south of the border with Donetsk Oblast. The Ukrainian military described the troop repositioning as a move to safeguard the lives of personnel after their former positions had deteriorated. The withdrawals came after those forward positions had been de facto destroyed by Russian long-range artillery and rocket strikes, a military spokesperson claimed. Analysts suggest that the Russian strategy of applying ground pressure to Ukrainian positions in Zaporizhzhia may be designed to both exploit Ukrainian resource constraints and draw forces away from Donetsk Oblast, while Russia fights tooth and nail to capture Pokrovsk. In Kharkiv Oblast, Ukrainian units operating on the eastern bank of the Oskil River around Kupiansk reported that Russian strikes have complicated logistics and movement, and noted that river crossings are increasingly exposed to glide bombs, mortar, and artillery fire, as well as fiber-optic drones. The last of those in particular is making the entirety of the front line much more dangerous. While none of these updates is groundbreaking on their own, they signal that Russia is steadily applying pressure at every axis and attempting to disrupt logistics at every point, to deal as much damage as possible to Ukraine before the temperatures get down to freezing. The war is not static or linear. Each development on one front has implications for the others. But if one thing is to be remembered from this segment, let it be that on every front, Russia is advancing, and they'll continue to do so as long as they can. When Russia ramps up, so does our mission, and your support counts now more than ever. In honor of the Kyiv Independent's 4th birthday on November 11th, we've launched our campaign to reach 25,000 community members before the end of 2025, and we only have a couple thousand left. If you'd like to be one of the ones who takes us over that line, there will be a link to our membership page in the description below. Thank you also to everyone who donates directly via YouTube. We see you, and we appreciate you. Videos appeared on social media this month purporting to show young Ukrainian men being drafted into the military against their will, crying and speaking to camera as they were sent to the front. The videos, however, were AI deepfakes. These videos, which were posted on TikTok and Twitter by anonymous accounts, have gotten millions of views. One viral clip shows a figure claiming to be a 23-year-old soldier being sent to a known hotspot on the front lines, begging, "Help me, I don't want to die." And we can read this as an encapsulation of everything one would fear in a time of martial law. being exempt from military service due to your age, but not having your exemption taken seriously in practice, and being sent to certain death while begging not to go. It's an evocative thought, one that inspires sympathy for the speaker and disgust for the people who've so stripped him of his free will. Namely, the Ukrainian military. So, first things first, investigators confirmed that the audio and visuals in these videos were created with the text-to-video model Sora, and some clips even bear a visible watermark, indicating it's AI-generated. The face shown in one widely shared video was later identified by a Ukrainian disinformation center as actually belonging to a Russian citizen, not a Ukrainian. As in many cases of viral deepfakes intended to sway popular opinion, the videos weren't flawless and didn't stand up to probing, because they weren't designed to. They were designed to elicit emotion. For Ukrainian men, conscription is a really complicated thing. Some join voluntarily, some are ready when they're summoned, some are less than thrilled, and some actively avoid it. We often get comments here asking us to address the viral videos of men avoiding being mobilized on the street. And it's not that we deny that such things happen, but they make up a small minority of mobilization cases and paint a picture of Ukraine's mobilization process that is inaccurate and harmful to the cause. It's not normal for men to be mobilized under the minimum age of 25, or when in possession of any other valid exemption. The scenario presented in the viral videos of unwilling and unprepared young men being sent to the front lines is so far from the norm of actual conscription in Ukraine. For foreign audiences who are engaging with this content in a somewhat second-hand way, often trickled down through Twitter and TikTok as rage bait, the effect is to momentarily paint Ukraine as a cruel and corrupt place to Russia's long-term benefit. It removes the clear perpetrator of the war from that picture and implies that official sources are purposely convoluting the truth by not reporting on this unsavory perspective. It plays on the suspension of disbelief that so many low-budget AI-generated images rely on, of being just convincing enough that even if the viewer clocks that there's something off about the image, they're able to tell themselves, well, something like this could be real. The point is that these videos aren't real, and the only group they serve are those seeking to undermine Ukraine. It's less than 1 month until the Kyiv Independent's first ever live event in New York City, where members of the team will meet our community and share stories from our newsroom. The program will include a silent auction whose proceeds will go towards supporting the work of our War Crimes Investigations Unit. You can learn more and reserve a spot at the link in the description below.
Hi, my name is Alexei Sorokin, and I'm the Deputy Chief Editor of the Kyiv Independent. Today, I will be answering your question. The question that we picked today is a question from Jolly. I don't know if it's a good question, but how effective are the sanctions on Zuckerman and Mindic? Or is it more for the show? First of all, it's a really good question, Jolly. Thank you. We've been covering this for a week now, and I think that I said everything about Mindic and Zuckerman to everyone, but I will try to cut to the chase. Sanctions as a tool are really questionable. President Zelensky is using sanctions back and forth. He sanctioned multiple people. The question here is, does the president have the authority to sanction Ukrainian citizens? It's been a recurring question in Ukraine because, for example, some time ago, Zelensky stripped Trukhanov, the mayor of Odessa, of Ukrainian citizenship, and for example, Trukhanov, he was born in Ukraine, and the reason for the stripping of Trukhanov's citizenship was that he has a Russian passport, right? So, and that was also questionable. So Zelensky is using some tools that, because there's no constitutional court ruling on this, remains questionable, but as a tool, if we skip that part, it can be effective in this case because it blocks financial transactions, it blocks and basically freezes all companies that these people own in Ukraine. The caveat here is that Mindic actually currently officially owns 50% of Kvartal 95 company, which is a company created by Zelensky. It's his production studio, which he passed to Mindic and to his other friend Shefir to run when Zelensky is president, right? So the interesting part here is if Mindic wasn't able to pass this company to someone else and he's now under sanctions, then technically Zelensky's company is also under sanctions now. But yeah, if it's a show or not, I think we will see in the near future, because there are rumors that Zelensky also wants to strip Mindic and Zuckerman of Ukrainian citizenship. And for example, Anti-Corruption Bureau sees this as actually obstruction of justice, because then Israel, a country where allegedly Mindic and Zuckerman are currently residing, won't be able to extradite them to Ukraine if they're charged here. So right now there's an ongoing back and forth. Are sanctions and a possible stripping of their citizenship a way to save them, or is it actually because the president supports the fight against corruption and he wants to freeze their activity and make sure that they are not able to circumvent money out of the country, right? So to keep it short, we don't know if it's right now for the show or no. We will definitely know in the coming weeks. I hope that it's actually something that Zelensky is doing to help justice, but if he's doing this to obstruct it, we will find out, because the Anti-Corruption Bureau is definitely going to make it public if this obstructs their case. So we'll see, and we will, at the Kyiv Independent, definitely keep you posted and continue, please, reading our coverage on this topic. It's been hell of a week. Thank you.
That's all for this week. We'll be back next Sunday with more news from Ukraine. If you appreciated this video, please consider becoming a member of the Kyiv Independent community. It's thanks to viewers like you that we can do this work, and we're so grateful for your support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.